Destroyers, as I've said many times before, are the most influential class in World of Warships Legends. They're the class that carries with them the biggest battle impact, and that is down to, I think, their stealth. Destroyers are the stealthiest class of ships in World of Warships Legends, and that stealth allows them to get close or get into the objective areas on the map, i.e. the capture circles, and capture them ahead of anybody else. In fact, if you want to do the most to guarantee that your team is going to win in any given standard battle in World of Warships Legends, then taking out a destroyer, so long as you know how to play them optimally, is probably your best bet. But the Khabarovsk is unlike any other destroyer in this game. In fact, I would go so far as to call it my very favorite destroyer in this game. It is, of course, the legendary tier Soviet or Russian destroyer. And while it's got the destroyer icon next to its name, and it fits inside of the destroyer class in World of Warships Legends, it really is not optimally played like any other destroyer in this game. In pretty much every destroyer in this game, you do want to spec into your concealment, and you do want to play the objectives. You want to take the capture circles. You want to spot for your team. That's not really the case in the Khabarovsk. I don't think you want to build for stealth at all in this ship. In fact, I haven't. You'll see my concealment is 6.9 kilometers when I'm not shooting my guns. Instead, I've built for the guns. I've used Anton Gurin, brought him up to rank 16, legendary level 4. That maxes out his skill in the 4th row. I cannot remember what it is called for the life of me at this moment, but it extends the gun range by 10% when fully maxed. It increases incoming fire dispersion, and the penalty it imposes on the ship for doing both of these wonderful things is decreasing the rudder shift time. So I've got the Khabarovsk built for double steering gears and maximum gun range with Anton Gurin, allowing me to achieve a range of 15.4 kilometers. The Khabarovsk has 8 guns, unlike most other destroyers in this game, and the high explosive enjoys a very good fire chance, particularly when you are using the legendary skill in Anton Gurin's row of skills that increases the fire chance at the expense of reducing the high explosive alpha just a little bit. And all that adds up together to make the Khabarovsk basically a very mobile, very dodgy, HE spamming cruiser. And so its primary goal, unlike most other destroyers in this game, is in fact to farm things and be an annoying pest. This works best if you can go out on a flank, as we've done here, and find a couple of enemy battleships to farm, as we've been doing with these 2 Yamatos. And you can see we've racked up 60,000 damage in roughly 4 minutes, and we're going to continue farming these Yamatos as our 2 division mates push in toward them, although I think we did make a misplay there a little while ago, because the enemy Shimakaze was spotted directly in front of us, and we did continue to farm the Yamatos. Got a little bit too caught up in it, but our distraction has rewarded us with a Witherer medal in less than 5 minutes in this game. The Khabarovsk's guns are excellent, although ideally we should have shot at that Shimakaze. I think our failure to do so might come back to bite our division mates in the sterns here. I can't remember for sure. Speaking of our division mates, though, I probably should pause to say a little word about them. You might recognize one of the names. First division mate here is Sparty 681, and then the second one is Xarkun. Xarkun is the name you might recognize. I recognized it, of course, because in the past, when the arena seasons have been up, that name, Xarkun, has been on the leaderboard pretty consistently for many of the arena seasons, sometimes taking the top #1 spot. In fact, I think a lot of the time taking that spot. So that's how I recognize the name. Maybe that's where you've seen it before as well. Did you know, though, that Xarkun has his own YouTube channel where he streams regularly? And while he was playing during a stream, I tuned into the stream, and I decided to see if he wanted some company in his division, which is how I ended up in the division with him for this game. It was while he was streaming. So, if you want to check out his channel, because you want more World of Warships Legends content to see on a stream, then you can take a look at Yonkonomics. I've left a link to his channel in the description of this video. In any case, the two Yamatos on the flank we spawned on, they've been cleaned up. And at this point, the enemy team is ahead of us on points, and they hold all 3 of the rings in the center of this cap. So we can't allow that to stand. We have to get in here, and we have to try to take these capture rings back from the enemy. Luckily, the enemy Kleber is spotted as he attempts and hesitates to YOLO rush the 2 friendly battleships in front of him. Frankly, I'm not entirely sure what he's doing or why he came to a complete stop, but too much firepower for him to deal with. Between my Khabarovsk and the 2 enemy battleships, he goes down. That just leaves the Shimakaze, who is in the center of the map, spotted by, frankly, I don't know what. Looks like he's smoking up, but he remains spotted as he tries to shoot at me. Oftentimes, it's a mistake to shoot at a Khabarovsk when you're playing an enemy destroyer. If you see one open water gunboating, well, he's just doing his job, frankly. He's not being a potato, and you seeing him doing some open water gunboating is not really licensed to open fire on him and think you're somehow going to have the upper hand, because you aren't. The Khabarovsk is the tankiest destroyer in this entire game. It's one of 2 destroyers, I guess one of 3 really, you could say, that actually has armor that makes a meaningful difference. The Khabarovsk has a 50mm plate along its side. In fact, I think it has a couple 50mm plates, and these 50mm plates take up enough real estate that they tend to catch high explosive shells from enemy destroyers and enemy cruisers and shatter them, rendering them useless as far as doing damage against the Khabarovsk itself, and allowing the Khabarovsk to actually properly tank damage with its armor, unlike any destroyer in this game, aside from maybe the Paolo Emilio, which does have a 60mm armor plate, but it's a lot smaller than the Khabarovsk's, and it sits close to the waterline, so shells can hit above that plate and still penetrate on the Paolo Emilio. It's not quite the same for the Khabarovsk, and I guess the gearing has a 25mm armor plate along the center of its ship, and sometimes that armor plate can also shatter destroyer high explosive as well. But the Khabarovsk, by and large, is the tankiest of all the destroyers, and it has excellent gun range and an excellent rate of fire. So for all intents and purposes, it is a cruiser, and that is how we're playing it. But it's a stealthy cruiser. And it's a cruiser that can deal damage as well as get into a position where it's spotting the enemy team. So that's primarily how you want to play it. That doesn't mean you can't go into capture circles and take them. In fact, you should do it. But you shouldn't do it at the very beginning of the game. It's almost never going to work out for you, and you're almost always going to be outspotted if you build the Khabarovsk for its full gun potential like I do. Nevertheless, we didn't really have a problem taking out the Shimakaze or the Kleber in this game. You can call that luck if you like, but we did contribute to taking both of them down. We did it later in the game, after the capture circles had already been flipped by the red team, and now we're in a position to flip the capture circles back uncontested. It, at this point, is 3 versus 2, 2 enemy battleships left versus 2 friendly battleships and myself. So we have the destroyer advantage. Oh, I'm sorry, it's only 1 enemy battleship. It's the Montana, and the other ship is a Chapayev. Even better. And from our position here in the center, we are about to flip all 3 of the capture circles. The points are close. It's 569 to 668. But this Montana could very well take out 1 or both of our friendly battleships here and bring the enemy team ahead on points. If he does, I should be able to melt him down. It'll only take a little bit of time. But the Yamato chunks him there. We get a fire on him after he gets chunked, and really, he's probably a one-shot kill for either of these two remaining battleships, especially as we continue to remove his hit points, and he goes down, although he takes the friendly Yamato with him. That just leaves the Chapayev, and we've captured the outer and the middle ring in this epicenter cap circle. We have not captured the center, though. We accidentally sailed out of it before taking it, so we are going to need to go back that way and flip it, because the Chapayev out there, well, he's in a fairly healthy state. The Yamato is not. The Yamato is probably going to struggle to actually hit the Chapayev, and the Chapayev is going to struggle not at all to hit the Yamato in return, and probably penetrate most of his armor scheme because he's likely running the equilibrium of power skill. In fact, the Chapayev actually burns the Yamato down and gets the arsonist medal in the process. And now it's just me versus the Chapayev. And in many other circumstances, a destroyer versus a Chapayev would be a very, very risky proposition. The Russian light cruisers like the Chapayev, the Kutuzov, the Ochakov, all of them, they are some of the scariest cruisers for a destroyer to face in the game because they have long range on their guns. They have small guns relative to cruisers. They're light cruiser guns, 152 millimeters, and as such they have a pretty rapid rate of fire. So that long range, that rapid rate of fire, and the excellent ballistics of Russian guns that allow their shells to travel with very high shell velocity at very, very not steep angles. Essentially, they don't have any kind of drag time, really. They don't go up in the air. They don't come down vertically. They shoot in very straight trajectories. That makes them easy to hit at long range on destroyers. So that, coupled with the long-range radar, I think the Chapayev has 11.7 kilometers of radar range. Those two things together make the Russian cruisers a very formidable and scary opponent for any destroyer in this game, except the Khabarovsk, which is fully capable of taking on any light cruiser at range and dueling it, while not losing too much hit points in the process. Now here, the Chapayev does catch us with his radar 7 kilometers away. That's not ideal. That's far too close for the Khabarovsk, and the Chapayev is going to be able to do a lot of damage to us. So what do? We turn around and we retreat to increase the distance between ourselves and the Chapayev. And we point our stern directly at the Chapayev to make ourselves the smallest possible target for that cruiser. As you can see, he's temporarily disabled our 2 rear turrets, otherwise we would be shooting at him as we retreat. And then one of his shells takes out one of the rear turrets permanently, turning us into essentially the Tashkent, because now we only have 3 turrets rather than 4, so 6 guns in total. That's okay, though. We're ahead of the enemy team on points right now. The Chapayev is moving into the capture circles to try to flip them, and it looks like he might succeed at doing that. He hasn't quite entered the center cap yet, and the island is still concealing him from us. We take a blind shot toward where our RPF indicator is pointing to hopefully entice the Chapayev to show himself, because we don't want to allow him to take all of these rings. We can't allow him to do that. The points are too close. It's 816 to 754. If he takes the majority of these capture rings, he's going to overtake us on points. Now, he does get the middle capture ring as he enters the center and begins flipping it. So we're going to reset him. We're not going to allow him to take this cap, and right now, there are less than 60 seconds left to go in this game. It's 819 versus 772. So we're going to play this safe. We're not going to allow this Chapayev to finish us off or take away too many of our hit points. We're going to retreat a little bit and continue resetting him at every chance we get. We lose sight of him behind the island there, and then, well, there's about 30 seconds left to go in the game. We're still ahead on points, 819 to 790. The Chapayev is probably going to take that center cap and that outer ring, but I don't think it matters. I think we should have comfortably won this. and we did it merely by resetting the Chapayev and using our guns. Note that we didn't use a single torpedo at all during the course of this game. We racked up 150,000 damage, and we're going to rack up 3,000 base XP. Now, we did cut it a little close there. We won by the skin of our teeth, so we probably could have played a little bit more safely and shot at that Chapayev a little bit more and not died, come out on top. But all in all, it worked out well. So, destroyers, at least the Khabarovsk in particular, can be played more like cruisers, and you can certainly carry in them without the use of your torpedoes at all. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.